good morning to our JALT representatives or officers and to our attendees. So it's nice to be presenting here at JALT. This is my first time to make a presentation here at JALT International Conference. So hopefully in the coming years, we will be able to see each other. So this time, I'm very happy that despite the challenging time, we are able to hold this particular conference. So as Yui mentioned, my presentation is about reducing the writing anxiety of university EFL students. So I myself is a college lecturer. I am an English lecturer at the Macau Institute for Tourism, and I have seen how students really, become anxious whenever they write, and especially with this pandemic. So when we went online, or when we now use Zoom, the more that there's a high level of anxiety among our students. So my presentation outline should include background of the study, my research questions, research method, findings, recommendations, and of course Q&A. So you're free to write your questions on the chat. And later on, after the presentation, you can also unmute yourself so that we can communicate and interact regarding this particular topic. So this is a pre-pandemic scenario. So I assume that most of us who are here are teachers or are teaching or have experienced teaching. Okay, so in your EFL classroom, regardless of the grade level or students that you teach, when you mention writing or any writing tasks to your students, how do they react? Are they happy? Do they scratch their head and feel a little bit worried? Are they afraid? Or the worst, do they curse you, or do they curse the teacher, or do they say bad words because they hate writing? So this was, in the classroom, we could see from our students' reaction, facial expressions, and even body gestures that among the different English skills, listening, reading, speaking, it's usually writing, which many students hate, especially students of our EFL students, or English as a foreign language or a second language. But now with the pandemic, when everyone went to Zoom or Google Meet or Google Classroom, so the anxiety is not visible to the teacher anymore, right? You don't see your students frowning anymore or cursing you or whatever. But I think there are a lot of manifestations that there is a higher level of anxiety among our students, such as like when they hesitate to communicate to you on Zoom, or when they hesitate to submit or turn in their writing tasks, even though there is an upcoming deadline, or even though that is 10% or 15% of their mark, or sometimes they just really detach themselves. Because I think this Zoom thing, there is such a, my colleagues and I were just talking that students now are really so distant. They are so passive, because I think for almost 2 years that they are studying on Zoom, or they are attending their classes on Zoom, there's this level of there's a wall wherein they just sign into Zoom, they turn off their microphone, turn off their camera, and then just do whatever they want to do. Right? So there is less interaction between students and between teachers and students, and among students and teachers. So I think even though we cannot, physically see writing anxiety among our students now, but I think there are other manifestations such as non-submission, poorly written assignments, or I don't know if you have some other observations among your students, you can also share them later on. But in my case, I think students withdrawing from the course, or dropping in the course is also one of the manifestations of this writing anxiety during COVID-19. So this is a comic strip I got from phdcomics.com, and this specifically illustrates the neurobiology of writing. On the left, what do you call this one? Slide, you can see here how writing is supposed to work, or how our students are supposed to do writing, right? So it starts from processing the language or thinking about their ideas, and then those ideas are transmitted to their brain stems, and it activates their muscles so that they will start writing or typing on their computer or on their laptop, and so on and so forth, until finally they have the final output. Okay, but in reality, this is how it works, right? So EFL students, okay, feel confused, right? Or sometimes they are insecure because they may not have, or they may not be very proficient about writing, or they are afraid, they panic. Even during this time, there is very little or very low motivation among students, so they hesitate to write. So this is supposed to be the ideal, this is the expectation, but this is the reality. So of course, we cannot blame our students, because especially for L2 or L3 learners, it is really very difficult now for students to write, especially so because there is less interaction or everything is done on Zoom for those who are still doing their classes on Zoom. Fortunately for Macau Institute for Tourism Studies, we are now back on face-to-face, but during this semester, there were also times when we did online because we had a few cases here in Macau. So we were subjected to mass testing. So classes were canceled for a week or 2 weeks. And then we went back face-to-face and then went back online. So I think all these things happening around are really making our students really anxious. So I'm glad that we are able to share our experiences and perspectives in this JALT conference. So here, what is anxiety? Okay, so there are two types of anxiety. One is trait anxiety, or the inherent disposition. Like, I mean, for a student, he's always anxious no matter what the situation is. There's also what they call the state anxiety, or environment triggered anxiety. So mean to say that anxiety only happens or is experienced by the student when there is something that will stimulate or trigger that particular anxiety. So a trait anxious person will be anxious in a variety of situations, and a state anxious person reacts in situations perceived as threatening. And one of that example is writing. So though it is generally agreed that EFL anxiety exists in various aspects of second or foreign language learning, such as listening, reading, speaking, and writing, only speaking anxiety has been predominantly researched, while anxiety concerned with reading, listening, and writing has not been adequately investigated. So this is the reason, aside from the fact that I teach writing courses here at IFT, I'm also very much interested on looking at how we can help our students become more confident in writing and less anxious in writing. So second language classroom anxiety is a more general type of anxiety about learning a second language with a strong speaking anxiety element, whereas second language writing anxiety is a language skill specific anxiety. So in general, our EFL or ESL students already have that level of anxiety. So whether they're learning speaking, reading, listening, or writing. But when we talk about specific language skills, then that becomes it is considered a language skill specific anxiety. So I would say that writing anxiety is a language skill specific anxiety. So this led me to come up with these research questions. What are the types and causes of writing anxiety among university EFL students during COVID-19? Is there a significant difference between the writing anxiety of the respondents according to their age, degree program, or nationality? And as teachers, how can writing anxiety be reduced to make L2 writers more confident even during uncertain times? So this is the research method that I did for conducting this study. I had 131 year 2 students here at IFTM during English 212 in the second semester of 2020-2021. So I used the tool, I adopted the tool of Cheng 2004 called Second Language Writing Anxiety Inventory, and Causes of Second Language Writing Anxiety Inventory of Reze and Jafari 2014. So these two are quite similar, but of course, there are just more items for Cheng's inventory. So I used Qualtrics because during the second semester of 2020-2021, we had blended learning. So we had students who could not come back to Macau due to travel restrictions. So Those students who cannot come to Macau, they were online, they were on Zoom, and we also had those students who are already in Macau come to our classroom. So we had blended learning at that time. So that's why I prefer to use Qualtrics so that students can access using their Moodle account in IFT. So here, let me just quickly explain a little bit about the second language writing anxiety of Cheng. So there are three different anxieties according to Cheng. So the first one is cognitive anxiety. So this refers to dysfunctional or maladaptive cognitions manifesting in the form of worry or fear. So they're worried, they're afraid. So it's all on their brain. And there are 8 items in the inventory for this cognitive anxiety. The second one is called somatic anxiety. So these are the physiological responses characterized by increases in heart rate, like palpitation, perspiration, muscle tensions, and so on and so forth. Perhaps you can see this also among your EFL or ESL students. So there were 7 questions in the inventory that tested this one. And the last one in the inventory is avoidance behavior. So these are the flight responses and avoidance, like when students really do not do anything. So they just simply avoid the writing situation or task. Okay, so there are 7 items that covered this particular anxiety. So let me proceed to the findings. So this table shows the t-test for L2 writing anxiety of the respondents according to gender. So although, as you can see here, female respondents had higher cognitive and somatic anxieties compared to male. So female students had higher cognitive and somatic anxieties compared to the male respondents. However, the female had lower mean for avoidance behavior compared to male. So in other words, like even though women really feel anxious, they manifest cognitively and somatically or physiologically, but they do not tend to avoid the writing task compared to their male counterparts or classmates. So the ANOVA for writing anxiety of the respondents and gender shows that there is no significant difference. There's no significant difference in between and within groups in terms of these writing anxiety when using their gender. Next table shows the weighted mean of the L2 writing anxiety of the respondents according to the degree program. So here at IFT, we only offer 6 degree programs: culinary arts, heritage, management, hotel management, tourism business, tourism events, and retail. So as you can see on the table, in terms of degree program, most of the respondents had high cognitive anxiety. Here, this column, cognitive anxiety, except for hotel management students whose somatic anxiety is higher than their cognitive. So most of our students had cognitive anxiety except for hotel students. So very low for avoidance behavior. So the analysis of variance for L2 writing anxiety and degree program of the respondents shows no significant difference between and within groups. Next, the weighted mean of the writing anxiety factors based on the nationality of the respondents. So as you can see here, the different nationalities include Macanese, so those who are a combination of locals and Portuguese, the mixed marriage of Portuguese and Macau residents. We also have the Macau Chinese, mainland Chinese, Hong Kong Chinese, Taiwanese, Burmese, Filipino, and Thai. And there was one who did not signify his or her nationality. So in terms of nationality, the mean is highest in cognitive anxiety for Macanese, mainland Chinese, Hong Kong Chinese, and Filipinos. On the other hand, the mean is highest for somatic anxiety among Macau Chinese, Taiwanese, and Thai respondents. The analysis of variance shows that between the 3 types of writing anxieties, there is a significant difference between and within groups in avoidance behavior at 1%. Okay, so it's only here at the mean, it's only on the avoidance behavior wherein there's a significant difference between and within groups. So let me proceed to the recommendations. So having seen those various anxieties experienced by our students in terms of writing tasks, I would like to offer some recommendations that encompass both the EFL students, the teachers, and of course the school and the society. So first, for reducing writing anxiety, let's look at some learning strategies that our students should and could adapt. Okay, so hopefully we can help them with this. So first, metacognitive. Metacognitive learning strategy, identifying one's interests, needs, and learning preferences. So I'm sure you're aware that we have students who may be auditory learners, visual learners, tactile learners, and kinesthetic learners. Okay, so I think knowing the different learning preferences and styles of our students would really help them to reduce writing anxiety. For example, if our students are auditory learners, they work better on tasks like listening to lectures, conversations, or taped material. So perhaps you could integrate some learning or task-based activities that would really tap the capabilities and skills of the auditory learners. When we have visual learners, these visual learners, they prefer source text, they prefer writing class journals, and they prefer transferring information from graphic, textual, or video material. For tactile learners, they work best with tasks that involve writing reports on testing models. And for kinesthetic students, they like to participate actively in tasks like role plays and projects. So even though we may have writing lessons or writing classes, I think we can still make use of all these different approaches or different learning, or tap or at least address these different learning styles of our students so that we can help them reduce their anxiety. So we have to vary our tasks. We have to use both audiovisual and multimodal means to help them develop their writing skills. Number two, cognitive. So this involves interaction with materials to be learned. So sometimes students really need, some repetition. I don't know how you do repetition in writing, but I think giving them several exercises, repeated exercises, rehearsals, translations would help them reduce their writing anxiety. So for example, you have a writing assessment, maybe giving them practices in class, not just one time, but maybe twice or three times, whether in class or independently outside the classroom, that could help them reduce their anxiety. Affective. So this is identifying one's feelings, anxiety, or contentment, and becoming aware of the task, like students would question for clarification. So do not discourage students from questioning. So we should encourage our students to question or ask questions. Cooperation means working with a pair or with a group. So we have to put them, we know our weak, we know our strong students. So I think we should be able to utilize different pairing or group work activities so that students with lower proficiency or higher anxiety would be able to help them cope with the writing tasks and do better in writing. So we can also give them self-tasks once in a while and help them with their self-reinforcement. So those are some learning strategies, and it all boils down to knowing our students so that we will be able to identify their needs, their interests, and how we can better help them in their writing tasks and to reduce their anxiety. The second one I'll be talking about is teaching strategies. So these are things I hope that we can, I know you're already doing this, and in case you are doing something that has not been listed here, you are free to share whatever strategies you also use in your writing classes. So here, number one, I would say help students cope with existing anxiety-provoking situation. So we should not be in a denial that, no, my students are okay, my students are good, This pandemic really has caused a lot of how do you call this one? Mental health issues, not just students, even us teachers who go to class online through Zoom. At the end of the day, we feel so mentally drained. We feel so, we have this low self-esteem, right? So even us adults feel the burden of this COVID-19 in terms of teaching. So how much more to our students who attend classes, like 3 or 5 classes in a day. So they also feel these anxieties or even depression at times. So we have to help them relax in our classes. So perhaps we can have, real physical relaxation exercises for a minute or for 3 minutes, just so they can feel better, or they can, release the tension or anxiety that they are feeling. We can also encourage them to do some journaling. I know that some people have found journaling a very effective way to really express themselves, especially those who are so the introvert people. They can express themselves through journaling. And also, of course, using process-oriented approach, right? Like we should help them. Like in my class this semester, we asked them to write a project proposal. So before they submit the written project proposal, they had to go through different stages. Like first, they delivered a pitch so that they can talk about their topics and why they are interested about the topic. And then later on, we asked them to write the draft before they submitted the final output. And with the draft, we gave them feedback. So I think writing a process would help students to really deal with the anxiety and even make their work better. So we have to provide sufficient scaffolding so that our students will be better in coping with the writing task as well as their anxiety. And of course, we should help them set goals or learning objectives. So like me, every semester during the first day, I would always challenge my students to set goals, because sometimes some students have their own goals, but there are many students who really have no clue what they want to do for the semester. So helping them set their goals and learning objectives would really help direct their semester. Number 2, make learning context less stressful. So I could offer, these are some suggestions I have. So offer oral and written feedback that are doable. Sometimes, teachers put a lot of red marks on a student paper. So students really feel anxious, like, what are these red marks? So even the use of red pen would discourage students from looking at the text and reading the teacher's feedback. So yeah, if you want to change your pen, use green or purple. Or now, if you do it online, like digital submission, then of course there are also many font colors that you can use instead of red, because red really has this psychological effect on students. Also for feedback, like maybe if you are asking students to submit multiple drafts, on one feedback, maybe you can focus on language. On the second on the next feedback, maybe you can focus on APA. So you have to really give focus on each feedback, not giving all feedback at one time, because that will really overwhelm students. In my case, I have experienced or have seen my students feel overwhelmed. So earlier, our plenary speaker talked about technology and games. So I think we now can use a lot of softwares or applications to help our students build their vocabulary, spelling, and grammar. Because I think the main reason why students, especially EFL students, are really, really anxious in writing is that because of poor vocab, right? Or maybe, I don't know if you experience students turning into you awkward sentences, and later on you realize they use Google Translate. So Google Translate is good, but it's not very accurate. And you would know that a student Google translated his work if he turns in very awkward sentences or projects. So although we have all these technologies, we also have to warn our students to be careful and also still come to you or get feedback from you as a teacher, not just relying too much on these online softwares or apps. What else? Encourage students to write beyond the classroom. So aside from your writing requirements or assignments, encourage them to write online reviews. Like, for example, later on, when we can travel again, or maybe locally you can travel in Japan or in your own country, encourage students to write simple online reviews, right? Because that is also a way for them to connect with, for example, the hotel or with other customers, so that it will also help them realize that, oh yeah, writing is not just for the classroom or for my teacher. I can also write for other people. I can also express share my experience through these online reviews. Or maybe they can have their own blogs or vlogs, video blogs, okay, blogs and journals, and help them or encourage them to publish. So beyond the classroom, there are many opportunities for writing or developing writing. So we should lead, or we should encourage our students to go to that direction. Here, I also mentioned about gamifying writing, okay? So I'm sure you are aware of different games now, like Kahoot, quizzes, what else, and many other online games that aid in teaching language, okay? So I have listed a few here. This ClassCake, I don't know if you are aware of this one, but in ClassCake, I tried this I used this for my PhD. For ClassCake, you can create assignments that students can do synchronously or asynchronously, okay? And then you can go back to each individual task later on. You can also embed video, audio, and photos. And there is also that speaking. There is a speaking function of ClassCake, meaning to say, like, aside, if you want your students to also develop their speaking alongside writing, you can ask them to speak or to say a short sentence or paragraph, and ClassCake will be able to record it. So ClassCake is very, very helpful as well. If you do it synchronously, you can also, for example, in the classroom, like 15 or 20 of your students are doing an assignment or a test on ClassCake. If they need help, there is a help function that students will click, and then teachers can immediately give help or support to the students. Storium is used for creative writing. So if you are doing more EAP or academic writing, beyond the classroom, of course, you can also encourage students to develop their creative writing skills. So you can use Storium for that. And writtenkitten.co or co. It's just a plain, it's a plain, what do you call this one? It's a plain sheet online. And then if you have to set your goal, like if you want to write 100 words, if you are able to achieve writing 100 words, after that there is a photo of a kitten that will show. So if you want more kittens, or if you are a kitten or a cat lover, maybe this will be very, very interesting. I don't know if we can, I don't know, but I don't think we can change the photos, but as the name implies, written kitten. So definitely it's kitten or cat that would show on screen. Okay, have them identify their writing buddy. I don't know if you have this one, like you encourage students in your class or even across different year levels. So you can have or establish writing buddies. So pair a weak one to a strong one, or you can ask them to choose whoever partners they want. And of course, I strongly, because I also have English Center and Writing Centers here, we have English Centers and Writing Centers. If you do not have it yet, maybe you can encourage your school to put up your English Center, because this is outside the classroom task, right? For IFTM, this is non-graded. No, non-credit, meaning to say we just offer this as a support, and students can sign up. We have different schedules. We offer different workshops. We also have individual tutorial. So students can freely sign up specifically on a slot which is available for them. So all English teachers either have English Center or Writing Center. So based on experience, those students who cannot ask questions in class, or who cannot show or do not seem to show the need in class, they would come to the English Center, and they prefer to have a one-on-one tutorial with the teacher. So if you do not have it yet, maybe you can encourage your school to have your English Center or your Writing Center, or if you already have one, you can encourage students to go there. Sometimes students in IFTM here in school, they do not take advantage, because we have sometimes we have schedules with no sign up. So I don't know, we are trying to make some some rewards so that students will come to the writing center. But writing center is specifically offered for our thesis students, because here in school we require our senior students to submit a thesis at the end. So these thesis students come to the writing center. English center is more general, so it could be students from year 1, year 2, year 3, or even year 4 students or thesis students who cannot sign up for writing center because it's already full. So they would come to the English center. So I think these are some ways to help our students reduce writing anxiety. If you have anything to share, feel free to share it later on or write them on the chat. So here, our goal is just to, I don't know, but with all this happening around, nothing uncertain, nothing uncertain because of COVID. So all we hope to achieve is peace, right? Peace. So on the side of our students, we also would like to help them. So we should adjust. We should be able to adjust our teaching strategies so that our students who are really so anxious about writing will still be able to cope with our requirements and still be able to survive and pass our classes. So thank you so much for attending my session. I'm now happy to answer your questions, or if you want to share what you do in your classroom, please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much.
All right, so the time is coming. So, and there are so many questions on the chat, so you can